What are the responsibilities of a worship MD? My name is Travis Doucette. I've been leading worship for over 25 years, and for about 18 of those years, I've known my friend Adam Lancaster. And I can't think of someone better equipped to answer that question. What are the responsibilities of a worship MD? So today I want to present to you an interview I recently did with Adam. You're going to want to watch with pen in hand as he unpacks some of the tips and tricks and best practices of what a worship MD, music director, does. And of course, if I can be of any help or encouragement to you, I encourage you to check out my website, theworshiptrainer.com, where you can learn more about my coaching and consultation services. And of course, you can follow me on socials at Travis Doucette. I hope this interview today helps you take your worship ministry and your worship leading to the next level. I was thinking just as we get started here, I think I've known you for almost 20 years now, because I think when we first met, you were out at Shadow Mountain with Charles. Would that be right?
Yeah.
So I came around like 2005, 2006, and then you were gone for a year, and then you came back. And I remember all the word on Liberty University was like, Adam Lancaster's coming back. Lancaster's coming back. And here we are, 18, 19, almost 20 years later. But man, it's been cool just to know you through the years. And man, we've clocked a lot of miles being on the road together. And
yes, we have.
Making records together and playing in church together. So thank you for being willing to do this today.
Yeah, dude. I still have. Every once in a while I'll find it. When we completed that Exodus project from, going on 20 years ago, you made some type of foam board or something with the album cover, and all you guys signed it.
That sounds like something I'd do.
I still have that in my house somewhere.
Oh man, that's so great. I love that. Yeah, some of my greatest memories of being on the road with you, doing the cruise to the Bahamas and doing the Women of Joy events. I feel like there could be a club with like the Drew Millers, the TJ Lawsons, the Juan Dugans that have all been like part of this band that has done these Women of Joy events like over the last 20 years.
There's it's not, we've been able to keep, in the beginning, it was a lot of putting together different guys to do it.
Yeah.
But for the past 10 years, the number of people that do that, I would say, is not more than a dozen, maybe. Like it's been we've been able to keep a small group doing it, which really just
makes it
helps.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah. That's so great. That is so great. Well, man, I would just love to pick your brain. And I know those, listening to this conversation, would want to know, first of all, that, you have been not an upfront person, but a background person in worship ministry for 20, 25 years. I know you've mostly served alongside Charles Billingsley at Thomas Road Baptist Church, but also at Shadow Mountain. And, you've been on the road for many, many years, but it's always been in this kind of secondary. And I don't mean that in like a degrading way.
No, it's not. It's what it is.
But you've been in this secondary position as a brilliant keyboard player, amazing guitarist. What other instruments do you play, Adam?
I would say at this point, I could do bass. I would feel comfortable.
Okay.
There was a day I did drums, but I would not feel comfortable at all. It's been almost 20 years since I was behind a kit regularly. And even then, that was the first instrument I ever picked up.
That was my first instrument too, drums.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so growing up, I played a lot of drums, and even did it for a group in college for a while. But the last time I was behind a kit regularly, it was the thing where your brain, and you can experience it on any instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain recalls, a fill or a line or whatever, and you go to execute that, and the muscle memory is not there to do it. So like I'd be playing and like, okay, here comes the fill, and I would start it, and like
it falls apart.
just hit the toms on 4 and then we're back to 1, you know.
I think most of my interactions with you, I've always known that you've been a brilliant musician, but they've been in this role of being a worship MD, and that's what I'd love to talk about today. Just like your journey into that and some of the things, the critical things that you've learned about that. You now teach, this is so incredible. You now actually teach a course on this. Did you ever think
Yeah.
20 years ago that you'd be teaching
No.
a university level course on how to be an MD?
No. And I mean, that was 20 years ago. In the industry, there were MDs,
Yeah, but
and
not
we
in
knew about
churches.
that. Yeah, but churches having a musical director was, the musical director was usually the worship pastor and or the minister of music.
That's right.
And so the idea that there was an additional guy on stage, leading the music side of what's happening was not a thing. And in all honesty, I just like backed into this thing. It wasn't something that I said, "Oh, I want to do this." It just started happening. Playing music growing up, I played in tons of different situations, and I felt like I didn't know what it was when I was younger. I always had a producer's ear.
Yeah.
And then as I picked up different instruments, could learn the language of those instruments, and so knew how to speak it. And just found myself even in college in some different groups. I came to college, was fortunate to be on a group that traveled like you.
Yeah.
Came in, I was playing bass, and I was happy just to be there and play bass. And after a few weeks, we'd be playing and I would hear something and I would reluctantly like say, "Hey, can we tighten this up?" Or, and so, it felt reluctant to me. I don't know if it was, tenacious on my part by perspectives of the other people or not. 'Cause
Right.
young, I was a freshman. After a few weeks, the leader of the group was like, "Hey, can you kind of make sure we're doing musically what we need to do?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I can do that." And
Do you think
that,
part of your propensity towards like hearing that and knowing that came from some of the musical influences that you had as a kid? Like, did you listen to a lot of tight bands and things that were, really solidified?
I listened to when I look back, and you're the same way, so we have a very similar appreciation. I look back at the stuff that I listened to growing up, which we are literally the same age by like 24 hours.
You're my elder by a couple of days, I think.
Yeah. And I listened to, part of it was because I had an older sister.
Yeah.
So my biggest memory as far as musical influence from that age is during the summers, I would be home, she would be home. And so she always listened to it was called Kiss FM back then. Like it was the pop station,
Sure.
So I, 5 years old, was just hearing all of this 80s pop.
Yeah.
And then the guy I learned drums from, I would go over to his house like on Saturdays or after church on Sundays. And this is so foreign what I'm getting ready to describe, but you will relate, and we're going to sound like a couple of old guys. It wasn't vinyls, okay? We weren't. Yeah. You and I aren't that old. Yeah. But we would pick out CDs and we would sit there and literally just listen to the record.
Yeah. There was a time when you actually sat down and you're like, "What are you going to do today?" Or "What are you going to do?" "Oh, I'm going to listen to music." And it wasn't like having it in the background. Now it's like in the background, in the car. But there was actually an active listening to music.
Yeah. So like we would talk about the drum fills, or
Yeah.
I remember listening to a Journey record and Open Arms was on, and we would like listen to the drum fill going into that first chorus, and so, or Phil Collins, Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now, that classic doom 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 doom. Like we would, Anyway,
So that was filling your mind. I had similar experiences. I remember having this neighborhood babysitter, and one of my favorite things that would happen when Laura would come to babysit us was that she would bring her cassette tape, holder. And it only, held 40 tapes. And most of the time they're the same 40 tapes, but everything from, I think that was the first time I heard like Led Zeppelin 4 with Black Dog and rock and roll, and of course Stairway to Heaven, to Madonna, True Blue, Papa Don't Preach, and just like, so just the whole gauntlet of pop music. And same thing, like, let's pop a tape in and let's listen. And my dad could never explain to you why music works the way it does. He's he's a smart guy, but he's working class guy, but he might not even have realized this, but he always had an ear. The albums that he would bring back into the house were the Joshua Tree, Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, like top 20 records. He just had an ear for picking out that stuff. So much of my growing up was being exposed to some of that.
Yeah. So, and then as I progressed and as I started playing keyboards and piano, naturally drawn to Billy Joel and Elton John. Yeah. So one of my fails as a music student, as a piano student, was I would never know what my lesson was for the week. Like, cause you were given these 3 or 4 songs, classical, and I'm supposed to like read these notes and play them and learn it. And I was horrible at that, but I would know what I would come back and I was like, hey, I figured out this Elton John song or this Billy Joel song. So
it's amazing. You had the ear for that. And you've always had a great ear to kind of be able to, pick things out and to tell your fingers to do exactly, what the player's doing on the recording. I've always admired that in you.
Well, thank you. But so to back to your question, I think I was fortunate to have a very wide breadth of influence from different eras and genres of music.
Right.
And I would hear what the album sounded like, what the song sounded like. And so that, along with, so my second piano teacher gave me the best tool probably of my life. He sat me down. This was probably maybe a year, not quite a year, if memory serves me right, of taking from him. And he sat me down one day. He's like, hey, you're never going to read music well. Like, your ear is just, your eyes can't overcome what your ear wants to tell your brain.
Right. Great wisdom too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, so let's make your ear the best it can be. So we spent the next season of that time, I don't know if it was a year or shorter or longer, and I would go to piano lessons and not play. He would play, and then I would be on the other side of the piano, and he would say, okay, what am I doing? And he helped me develop the idea of kind of just constantly listening and analyzing.
Wow.
He's like, when you're in the car, I don't have perfect pitch.
Right.
So I can't hear a song and go, oh, that's in D flat.
Right.
But he would say, hey, when you're listening, just listen to the bass line. Like, learn what's going on and just learn how to do that. And it's at this point, it's like breathing. Like, there could be a song playing in the background and my brain is already
analyzing it.
Talk with you, but I can know what the progression is.
Yeah. How has that come to serve you well in your role as an MD, especially when it comes to worship music? Because we all know that worship music is highly complex.
So in the context of worship music, I would say learning the song becomes like the first step, and getting the idea, getting the musical idea of the song. Does that mean knowing every part note for note? No, but knowing the arc of the song. And then when that gets into the execution in the context of a worship service, like where that arc needs to go in the course of what's happening in the moment.
Right.
Which we can kind of get to that.
Yeah.
But being able to understand what's happening musically at a quick rate, really, it helps.
Mm.
So that's where the ear training has really been beneficial.
What are some of the most important things that play into becoming like an effective MD? What are the things that you'd say, listen, you're probably not ready yet to be an MD at your church until you have these things locked down?
I would say being able to understand musically what's happening beyond just your instrument. If you know if you're playing guitar, if you know what the guitar part is and you can execute that, but you don't understand the dynamics of what's happening from the other players, you may get into a section where the acoustic player or the keyboard player are playing all the right chords, but their dynamics aren't quite right, or they're a little busy. Strumming pattern's a little happy, being able to hear those different elements that are making up your context in that moment, which are taken from the original song, but not completely. Like every context is a little different. So understanding the song, knowing the music, and then being able to understand what's happening with the other instruments on the stage doesn't mean you have to be able to play them, but understand what's happening. And then, the library of and the language of what those instruments need.
Yeah. How do you draw out better musicianship when the musician is not delivering on what their part should sound like? And how have you developed the language to speak to them in a way that they can understand?
What was the first part of that question?
How do you draw out musicianship in someone when they're not delivering on how you want the part to sound? You were using a couple of examples before. Your strumming pattern's just a little bit too happy, a little bit too bright. How do you draw out from them how you want them to play?
I think, first of all, music is an art. So whoever is a musician or playing an instrument, they are creating something with their body, which is what makes music fantastic, makes it human. Each person brings their own humanity and how they were created to it. But in that process, sometimes musicians are creating things and trying to take a really abstract thing and make it concrete. Helping musicians find a lane is probably how I would define that, and how I'm pulling that from them. In that they're in create mode. So as an MD, what you're doing is you're coming along to take 5 or 6 or 7 individual creations and sculpt that into something to keep it in the artistic lane. So you're drawing from them and giving them some parameters that help contribute to the whole, which is greater than their individual contribution. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about working with young players. And do you always start with something concrete, like the original recording of a worship song, and saying, hey, before we get fancy and we put our fingerprint on it, I want you to learn it as it is? Or do you no, it's pretty subjective. As long as my ear says that this is sounding right for this context, I'm cool with what you play? Where's your starting point?
Most musicians that I work with, I'll start with musicians, and then especially the younger players that are kind of more in tune or know what's happening sonically and part wise with the songs, they come delivering that. So I'm always listening for what may be missing in our immediate context sonically. So it could be that the bass player is playing what's on the record, but for what we're doing in that day or that event,
or even in the moment,
I need a little more, I need a little less. And so the original is kind of a good starting point. Some players that I work with, like, they'll listen to it, but they also they like the page in front of them, so they're looking at what's that. So
Right.
then I shift to, hey, second chorus where we start, the drums start, and it says bass in quarters. I think we're going to need bass in eighths right there, like just to help set that section a level up.
So would you say that there's two types of musicians, ones that want to follow what's on the page, they're chart readers, versus, I'm sure you've played with other people, this should probably be more how I would approach my playing. I'm going to memorize it up here. I'm going to from top to bottom. And is there a delineation between the two? Do you see those two different types of players?
I do. And then I would say there's a third bucket, which is much smaller, of people that do both.
Yeah.
That are like, okay, I'm reading. Usually people that are page people, as a general rule, so I'm going to generalize here, they're looking at that, and that's the Bible.
Right.
And they're really excellent at executing what's there. Different rhythm notations, whatever may be there. And so adjusting from that, it takes them a second. They want to mark it up or whatever the case may be. People who come to the table and it's mostly just in their head are good at adapting quickly, but often they sometimes miss or don't know, okay, there's a triplet run back into the chorus.
Right.
Like, we got to hit that. And so, and then I'll get the, what are those notes again? And they're working it out. And I don't mind any of it. Like, I'm there to help.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everybody knows what to play, when to play it.
Yeah.
And then there are guys who have a chart in front of them, and you can say, hey, let's put a break here. And they're like, got it. Yeah. And they'll remember it. Like, they don't even write it down. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I from my time working with you, for those who are watching that don't know, Adam teaches at Liberty University and is the MD at Thomas Road Baptist Church. When I was on staff at Thomas Road and playing with y'all, you guys were very much a chart culture. Are you guys still a chart culture? And what challenges does an MD have working not in a chart culture? Does it take more time to give instruction? Are you drilling in a different way because there's not a, for lack of a better word, Bible of how the song goes?
We live in both worlds, and it can be dependent upon the week or the song, or we'll have, like if we have a choir and orchestra Sunday, I've got a computer that's set up on Ableton. I've got 70% of the band that plays by ear, and I've got an orchestra that has sheet music in front of them. So one of my roles in that context is jumping between the languages of those three contexts.
Easy peasy.
So being able to look and identify, and I'm not a super organized Ableton guy. There are guys who are much faster and more adept at that world. But I usually will identify. I use the guide track as a lot. Like if I'm navigating a song, okay, we need to go back. Let's pick it up at chorus 2. I can usually count the number of cues and see the space, the number of bars, and so I can navigate the Ableton session that way.
Right.
But then telling the rhythm guys, okay, hey, we're going in the second chorus, so we're all in here. It's not first chorus, it's not light. We're all in. And that we're going to pick it up at bar 38 orchestra. And so helping everyone know where they're at musically. I often say that being an MD in a large context, like we're talking about with a choir and an orchestra and a lot of different moving pieces and tracks computer and time code and a production team, you're the on-stage air traffic control.
Right.
So it's not just answering questions and giving direction, it's anticipating the questions that may come.
That's good.
There was a second part to your question a couple minutes ago that I wanted to get into.
Yeah, drawing out what to draw out in musicians, and
Yeah.
and maybe how to correct it when it's not right, using that language. I was gonna ask.
So one of the things that is a part of this MD course that I teach is learning and growing your musical library, which will help communicate to different musicians. So if I've got a young guitar player and I've got a bass player in his 50s, I've got a drummer in his 40s, like you've got all these different people that have different contexts.
Yeah.
And there are tools that you can use. There are things that you can reference that they will know.
Right.
So for people our age, maybe a little bit younger, if I were to say, hey, I want this needs, on a drummer standpoint or from a keyboard standpoint, if I say, hey, this needs to feel like clocks.
Right. Everyone's there.
Okay. Everyone knows immediately what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. At the same time, if I've got a young guitar player, I'm going to pull out something that I know, which this is probably the weakest part of my lexicon, is like the sound of what needs to happen for that. And I need to give them a reference that they understand.
So building a library of references that goes beyond maybe even your musical preferences, but that transcends the generations, the classics.
Yeah, like if I've got a my age older like bass player and I need something, now the song's going to escape me. No, it's One Headlight. Like if I want that groove from the Wallflowers, boom, boom, like I can say that and immediately they're going to get it. It saves tons of time. I don't have to identify, okay, I want you to pulse on the ands,
Right.
1 and 2 and 3. And I just say, hey, this needs to be like One Headlight.
Yeah.
And they go, got it.
Yeah. That's so helpful. That is so great. Along the lines of that, talk to me a little bit about building. So you used the phrase before, all in. Like we've talked about musical examples, but there's also musical terms. And I'm sure that they change from church culture to church culture, but how important is it for an MD to develop almost a lexicon or a dictionary of musical terms that they're going to use in the context of their worship setting, so that the band knows, oh, when he means all in, that means I'm playing as well.
Yeah. I think repetition and consistency with what you expect or with what you're saying plays a big role.
Yeah.
That comes from like chord calling and knowing your players.
Yeah.
So if I've got players, most of the time now, every person that I'm playing with or that's playing at our church on Sunday knows the number system.
Right.
Wasn't always the case. So knowing whether I need to call for a C minor or a 2 minor, that's a difference.
Yeah. And do you adjust based on who your players are that week? Like if you know.
Yeah. If I know I don't have a numbers guy, then I'll go chords.
And how do you create like if knowing the number system is where you want all your musicians to be, how do you encourage them to learn it that way? Like, is there ever do you ever put them in hot water where it's just like, hey, we're gonna, talk to me a bit about that and how that works in kind of creating that culture and teaching people that system.
I'll do both sometimes. If I've got the space to, if the music is slow enough, and I'm also like, my mic goes to the worship leaders' ears too.
Right.
I can't.
They love that.
I can't occupy all of that space.
Sure.
With my cues.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll go numbers even though I got a guy who's chords, and kind of lead them along that way.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the old throwing the birds out of the nest.
Yeah.
Like you can prep, you can practice, but the best way for people to learn is to do it.
And you've probably experienced this too. I've done the same thing, and I've had musicians come up to me afterwards, sometimes often older musicians, and they have a smile on their face and like, man, I think I was with you most of the time. There was just those couple of spots that I missed, and but they're so willing, to try it especially when it's less consequential. So like in background music during, baptisms or something like that, when the focus is somewhere else, it's far less consequential. There's less of like, oh my gosh, I'm the bass player and I totally, altered the sound of that chord because I played the wrong note,
Yeah.
That's good. A little while ago you were talking about how the role of an MD is in part to help musicians stay in their lane. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the common problems that you see with players when they come out of their lane, and how do you get them to come back?
Usually I would say it's one of two things. Usually it's overplaying, which happens, especially as the band size or the number of people on stage increase. So one of the things I always say, especially for keyboard players, especially if they're talented, hey, the bigger the band, the smaller the hands.
I like that.
Just, if we've got 7 people up there, mentally tie those thumbs together. You're going to live right here. This is where I need you.
Which, as a keyboard player, especially a younger keyboard player, that can feel so restricting, because you feel like, I got 88 keys. I need to use every single one of them.
I've got to use them all.
Yes. Do you not understand?
Yeah. And skilled or experienced musicians will get that.
Yeah.
I was working sometime over the past year with this piano player who is amazing, like ridiculous.
Right.
And so before we went into the rehearsal for the event, this is so wise as a player. He comes up to me and just so kind and respectful goes, okay, if 1 is what's on the ink and 10 is like Herbie Hancock on drugs, where do you want me? Because he can do any of
it. Everything in the middle. Yep.
Yeah. And I said, that's fantastic. I want you to live at about 5 or 6.
Right.
And then I want you to give me some moments that are 8. But make home base 5. And he was like, I got it. And he did it.
It sounds like one of the greatest gifts that a musician to an MD can give them is maybe their own self-awareness.
Yes. Because it's not about what you can do. It's what's going to contribute best to the whole production. Which
can get slippery because, depending on your church context, there's a submission to what's best for this church context and a respect of the person that's in authority to be able to discern that, because there is so much subjectivity in musicianship. And, I've worked with musicians. I've probably been the musician that's had a contrary opinion, but, talk to me a little bit about that, the role of the MD in knowing what's appropriate for their church context.
I think there's 3 things you need to get a grasp on. 1, your church room. Like, what are the people in there? What are their usual expectations? What are they used to? What's that context? Knowing your pastor.
Yeah.
And knowing what they're comfortable with. And then knowing your leader, your worship leader, and what they want and or need.
Right.
And so for me as a player, if you see me on the Thomas Road stage versus when Charles and I are out and we're doing big events, big conferences, those are 2 totally different contexts. And I would say I play a little bit different. My presence is drastically different between the two, because the conference need, you've got a convention hall with 8,000 people in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different need than our room with 3,500 in it.
Right.
It's a different need on band makeup.
Yep.
You know, when we're on our stage at church, we've got a full stage.
Yeah.
Even when it's pulled back, it's still pretty full.
Yeah.
When we're doing a conference, there's 4 or 5, maybe 6 of us on stage.
Right.
Like, that's a different ratio. And so learning the context and then knowing what Charles or Scott or whomever's leading, what they need and are wanting and are looking for, weighs into that. So I kind of govern the stage based upon those different contexts, and reading the room is a huge part of it.
Right.
And so that comes into like in the moment decisions, because this is where knowledge of the music, I would say, is such a first step.
Yeah.
I can't read the room and read my worship leader if I'm worried about my part on this next section.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I use charts just about every week, but I'm familiar with the music enough so that the chart becomes a reference, not the map that I've got to follow.
Right. Right.
And so being able to get my head up out of that and look around and see what's happening as an MD is vital.
Now, as an MD, like I remember, you know, back in the day when I attended Thomas Road Baptist Church, the musical goalposts were in different spots than where they are today. There's been a progression of what happens in that room, and even culturally, there's been an evolution. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. How
does that happen, and what role does the MD, if any, play in advancing that?
Great question. Because I would say, and Charles and Scott would also agree, like there hasn't been we want to be this.
Right.
It's just we've adapted over time while staying true to like our DNA.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a human thing. Like you and I are still the same DNA. If you find pictures of us from 20 years ago,
God help us.
yes, very much so. We have different expressions.
Yeah.
Because times change, cultures change.
Yeah. Clothing changes.
And so, yeah. And so it's very similar, I think, with churches.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's good to identify, like, what would we consider DNA things? And then what are the things that we need to adapt? And how that plays out musically, like that plays into song choice. It also plays into service flow. What is the emotional arc of our sets, our service,
Right.
all of those things, and being able to identify where things need to adapt or where we need to adjust. What does the service call for?
Right.
And there's a planning aspect to that, and then there's a in the moment aspect to that. And there are things that we would do. Like I can usually tell you, looking at a service order, where the possible moments of audible or variation may be. And we let those breathe. We're not going to have 99% of the time a breakdown after the second chorus, an extended breakdown after the second chorus of House of the Lord. Like it's just not. It's like it's like, oh no, I got to stop the tracks. Here we go. No, like we know, but at the end of that song, depending upon where we're headed, we know there's a breath there, and we're going to let that see what it needs to be.
When you're talking about knowing the musical DNA of a church, what are some good questions? What are some good conversations that a young MD might ask of others on church staff, in the band that he's maybe inheriting, that would uncover what the DNA of a church is?
I would start with what are the moments / songs that you see really resonate with your people. And for some, and we would be in this category years ago, it would be like, the big
anthems,
the big anthem thing. I don't think that's the case anymore. What I would say what resonates most with the room at large these days is moments of reflection. I'm not saying necessarily somber.
Okay.
But there is a thing I would say when we take a moment, whether it's to pray or whether it's to pray about things or over people, those seem to be the ones where it's like, okay, something's happening here, and we need to see where this goes. So I would start with what are the moments that resonate the most with the people that are currently in the room. Where do you see yourself, as a worship ministry or as a band or whatever the case may be? Where do you want to be? What's the gap between those two? And then what are the ways that you need to teach or shepherd that room into different expressions of that? So like, it's the classical, start where people are at and then help them move along. Like it's leadership principles. Right. But then how that gets fleshed out musically may look different context to context.
And as you've seen the evolution of these things grow and change at Thomas Road, have these been things that have been, they've just happened on their own, or have they actually been conversations that you've had with Pastor Scott or Pastor Charles and like, hey, that really felt good today, and we should do more moments like this? Do they turn into conversations behind the scenes, and are they discussed?
Oh yeah, there are conversations after the fact.
Okay.
And then there's surprise things.
Yeah.
Like we'll plan something, could be like we call them specials, so it's not necessarily a sing-along moment, but it's not necessarily like a big solo moment. It's a different way to express. Like one of the things that sometimes I worry, it's not like a huge worry, it's not like I stay awake at night over it, but one of the things we've lost is in our chase for worship participation, we've lost a little bit of appreciating music.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, we joke about it, like worship songs are so complex. That's the joke, like 4 chords, here we go, which pop music is no different. So True. It's not just, yeah. But in our quest for everyone being, a part of what we're doing, which is love, it's part of what makes the church the church. We've lost a little bit of the appreciation when someone can just deliver a piece of music, and it's not really intended for people to sing along with. Right. So I remember I got 2 examples. One, a few years ago, we took a whole summer and we went through the book of Revelation. So it's like the last couple of weeks. And if you understand our personnel and our heritage and what kind of has been the go-to for Thomas Road, we all agreed that we couldn't escape a series on Revelation without Charles doing Midnight Cry.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean we don't do moments like that on the regular. There used to be a day where that was very common, but we don't. Yeah. I mean, for the past 10 years, I would say.
And for those watching that maybe don't know, like Google Charles Billingsley, has had a career as a CCM artist, a solo artist, and Midnight Cry, would you not say is one of his signature songs?
Oh yeah, it's still, I've been traveling with him for 20 some years. It's still one of the ones we'll walk into some churches and, they'll be like, you're going to Midnight Cry, aren't you? So what was interesting, what the surprise was from that
Mhm.
is, we did it, and there's some people that just, ate that up, and you can tell, like, they are in their happy spot
Yeah.
right in
Yeah.
that moment. After the service, all of us got text messages from 20 somethings that were like, "Oh my gosh, that was incredible."
Wow.
And it was a moment where it was like, hey, you can appreciate something that's outside of your norm, and you're not up and you're not singing along.
That's great.
And it was cool.
That's
And
great.
we've done things where we'll plan a moment, and it's intended just to serve the song and serve the service.
Mhm.
And we'll get surprise feedback or messages, or people talk to us like, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing." We're like, "Oh, thanks. We just kind of decided we'd do something a little different just to break it up." And it really resonated. So
That's so great. You were talking a little. Oh, you had two stories. Did you get to share both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Wanted to make sure you got both of them in. You were sharing a while ago about how you play with charts every week, but you don't necessarily have to use it as a map, but more of as a reference. Um, the MD on a typical Sunday is spinning a lot of plates. So can you
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit, maybe even bring us back to like 20 years ago and how things have changed in the world of MD? Like, man, me and you remember when like Reason was like the latest thing and we had like our 5 or 2 go-to loops that we would put behind every song, right? But
Oh, yeah.
but talk to me about how the technology has changed and why it's important, especially for an MD, to be able to manage tech, room, watching worship leader, watching, and how do you order which are the most important things, and what things as an MD do you have to commit to putting on autopilot?
Oh, okay. There's a lot in
Yes.
there. Okay. I'll start going, and then you just say, okay, just get me back on. I would say an understanding of technology is crucial. Do you have to be absolutely fluent in it? No. But helping, like a click track, helps everyone just understand where, especially depending upon your stage and how your sound is set up. Most places these days, everybody's on in-ears.
Right.
The industry has done really well at bringing that like accessible.
Mhm.
There was a day where if you weren't a mega house,
Yeah.
you didn't have that capability, and now companies have made it accessible to small churches, and there's so much benefit that comes from that, especially with small rooms and stage level and all that stuff. But
Yeah,
track.
musicianship has gotten better, I think, because we can hear ourselves in the parts better.
Yeah.
We're not having to
Yeah.
fight with wedges and stage volume.
No, and it's benefits all around. But with that being the case, everybody's closed off for the most part. So click track just helps everyone know where they should be. You don't have different interpretations of where the beats lie.
Right.
Like it's right there for everyone,
Yeah.
which is really helpful. And so many different ways I want to go. I'm just trying to land on one. So understanding as an MD, when's the right time for that? Not every moment has to be clicked out. And I would say this is if it's not a soapbox yet, it's getting real close to it for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have traded the church bulletins with the worship order printed out, like all good Baptist churches used to do, for the PCO run sheet, and both have locked us in. And you can Ableton program the Holy Spirit right out of your service before you know it.
Wow.
And there are times where you need to use technology, and there are times where you don't. And this is where knowing the music, knowing the service flow has to be already ingested,
Right.
because you can't make that call if you're worried about the logistics of what the technology is doing. And so learning to recognize the moments in your planning as well as your execution. There are times where planning and programming and making something tight, a transition or whatever the case may be, are super beneficial, and you should use that. And then there are times where you don't need to press start on the set and then just let it run for 3 or 4 songs, because you're going to box yourself in.
Right.
And if you allow technology to become the worship leader, then you've stepped out of your role.
Wow. That's so good.
The worship leader can't change something because we've got everything time coded and programmed. Then you've now taken that mantle and put it on the technology on the computers and taken it off of the worship pastor. Technology does not have a sense of the Holy Spirit. So my admonition these days to guys, especially as I'm teaching, because the tendency is to like, man, we can get this thing tight. We can button everything up. We can put everything in here.
We measure the success of a set in its ability to be executed flawlessly, which is so easy to, like you say, write out the Holy Spirit. The Spirit might say, well, actually, I'm going to do something spontaneous, and it's not going to be adding something. It's actually going to be subtracting something.
Yeah. I mean, the number of times we take away, I'll use the context of when Charles and I are on, like, doing conferences and stuff on the road. We spend a lot of time planning those. I would say 70, 80% of the time we execute the plan. It looks a little different each time, but probably 2 to 1, we actually take something away in the moment as opposed to adding, because we've got a plan. But then we get, and those sets are long. Those are 6, 7 songs sets. Like, they're long. So we're constantly reading the flow and the pacing in the room. And we'll get somewhere and it's like, okay, we're sitting here. So we sit there, and now we're not going to, like, time wise and even flow wise, like, we don't need the extra 2 songs. So Charles and I will look at each other, and he'll give me the cut sign. I don't know which one he's going to cut. Like, that's a benefit of 2 decades together. But
what is the cut sign? Is it?
He'll just do that. Or, like, if he wants to go to the next one, he'll do that. And, sorry, I'm not in the camera. He'll do that. And then I know that means, okay, we're going to cut the next one. We'll end the set with or we may be at song 6 of song 7, and he'll just look over and give me the fist, and I know we're gonna end it here. May not know how we're gonna end it here, but we're gonna end it here. We're gonna look for that.
And isn't that cool? Like, the benefit of having worked with someone all these years, I'm sure would it be accurate to say that there are some ways that you guys can read each other's minds on the platform?
Yeah. I mean, that comes with just, A, we've done it so long, but B, we have a very similar sense to what should happen.
Right.
I mean, it's rare where he says something either in planning. We'll if there's a difference, we'll go back and forth. In the moment, look, it is my job to facilitate his vision for what's happening. So I'm never, when he says, hey, let's do an extra chorus, I'm never in that moment going, no, we don't need to do that.
Right. You're surrendering your autonomy as a musician to serve a vision.
Yeah. Now, with the benefit of how we've done this for so long, I will tell him, hey, I think we should sit here, and he'll usually nod or, whatever.
Yeah. You have that relational collateral.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like you said, it's the benefit of doing it so long together.
That's great.
But I often tell worship leaders and MDs, like, just always be looking for the moment something changes in the room, because I don't want to say always, but I would say a large percent of the time, not only in worship, in life, God works through the interruptions.
Amen.
And when you can take a group of people, especially musicians or worship people, and if you ask them this question, in your life, there's probably a handful, let's call it 3 to 5, like really impactful moments in the context of corporate worship that you remember and that made an impact on you. How many of those were planned? And like, yeah, 0. Most of the time it's, we had this service and we ended up going into just this big prayer time. Okay, that wasn't planned. Yeah. It could be we were at a camp and we were sitting. It was the after service and everybody's by the campfire or whatnot. Right, right. Like I'm being a little cliche right now, but it's those moments that really impact people. So always be looking for the interruptions. And I always tell guys, you never know what your pastor is walking into the room with. You did not, when, and this happens, unfortunately, more often than it should. We have a Christian school attached to our church. Well, just to give you perspective, we have friends, his son's graduating. He's been there for 4 or 5 years. He's had 5 friends die while he's in high school. It's a large school, so it's not like outside the statistical ratios, but it just happened. Horrible. Yeah. The worship leader, and especially the MD, do not get that call Saturday night at 11 p.m. You know who gets that call? The pastor. So he's walking into service with that. And so if pastor stands up and decides he's going to announce that and we're going to have a prayer time over that, I don't know what you have planned next, but you need to be evaluating real fast what the right call is, because that moment just changed the temperature in the room. And if you just go forward with what you've got planned, like you're not stewarding your responsibility at all, in my opinion. And maybe it's not like something bombastic, but it could be, hey, we need to bail on the tracks on this one and just wade our way into this and be sensitive. Doesn't mean I'm going to throw the entire stage off track and we're going to pull out a 1992, what's the God is Good guy.
The Don Moen.
We're not going to pull out a 1992 Don Moen song that nobody knows, but we may stick with the song, but we're going to, the way the treatment's going to totally change.
Yeah. And so, isn't it interesting, like once you've journeyed with a church and you get to know the catalog of songs that are in their hearts, you can draw upon, oh, this is a moment to pull out what a friend we have in Jesus, or this is a moment to pull out, whatever, how great is our God.
Yeah.
But you only know that from traversing with a congregation and from knowing what those heart songs are that they can sing from memory, where if the AVL guy is like sleeping at the wheel, it's okay because they have the lyrics written on their hearts.
Yeah. So being able to steward those and make the decisions in those
real
moments.
Time. Is there anything else, like this is a great bunny trail, but is there anything else, because I wanted to ask this question, like so much of being an MD is learning to manage Holy Spirit interruptions, aka the spontaneous. Is there anything else that you would add to what you've already said about some of the muscles that an MD needs to like work on in the musical gym so that they can manage those moments well? And they can be musical things, they can be spiritual things. Anything more that you would add to that?
I would say knowing how your worship pastor or your leader in those moments treats those things, learning, and this is time, and a little bit what we're saying here. I'll just add this. We'll pin that. Let me say this. I'll come back to it. There is value in being somewhere regularly. There's a big culture, and I'm not bashing this by any means, but there is a big culture around just contracting gigging, all over
church
the place.
Gigs. Yeah. I don't like that term. I don't like referring to the worship of Christ as a gig.
Yeah. But specifically as an MD, like if I'm just a player, okay, I can kind of, hop here and there, and I'm there to serve, and I'm going to execute. As an MD, like being in a consistent spot has value. So I'll just say that. I won't harp on that anymore. Learning the body language and the vocal language / inflection of your worship leaders tells you a lot.
Wow. That's so good. Yeah.
So some musicians, like this is the downside of in-ears. Nobody listens to each other anymore. They play their part.
Right.
Remember, write this down so we come back to it, because this is a real practical thing.
I love that you know that I have a pen in my hand and I'm writing things down.
Let's come back and we'll talk about ear mix for a second.
I got it down.
Okay. But making sure you hear your worship leaders so that you can gauge what they're wanting by what they're singing. With Scott or Charles, if we get into a spontaneous moment, I can tell where they want to go by how they're singing what they're currently singing.
You see, like the energy in their voice.
Yeah.
I can detect that.
Yeah. And, they can give me body language that's going to tell me that too. They can also just sing hard, sing soft, make the phrases long, make the phrases short. Like for Scott and Charles, like if their intensity picks up, we're going to go somewhere.
Yeah. And you're with the band, you're telling them to match that energy.
Yeah. And so like you were talking about phrases earlier. Like my lexicon would be things like, okay, keep it steady.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, now it means we're getting ready to go somewhere. All right, let's lay into it. Drive the eights. Open it up. Those are all like common phrases that you would hear.
And when you say open it up, the first thing I think of is that's usually a shift in how the drummer's playing. Maybe they've been tapping on the hi-hats, but now they're going to the ride.
Yeah, yeah. When I say open it up, it's usually in the context of most of the stuff we play. Worship music loves the toms like nobody's business. So it's like drummers on the and they're building it. Yeah, they're doing what you want. They may even mean, like if I say eights, boom, boom. All right, open it up. That means it's an all skate, like bam.
Yeah.
Like let's give this thing some release. Musically, there's nothing more frustrating to me, and maybe it's just my age or what music I like or whatnot. And it happens sometimes in more modern stuff. Like they'll just U2 that thing all day long and never give me a release. So learning and listening to your worship leader and watching them. Like once again, get your head out of the music so you can pay attention to what's happening in the room. And that has we're talking in a very church context and spiritual context. If you take it out of that and you put it in a secular setting or a corporate event setting, like same principles apply. Like you need to look up, and if the mid-tempo thing isn't working in your set, like we're going to stay away from the mid-tempos. Like you just constantly have to be reading what's happening and what people like in the room.
Now, in knowing your worship leader, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know this because I've known you for so long. You have a great relationship with Charles and with Pastor Scott. Is that a prerequisite for being able to be an effective interpreter of them on the platform? What happens if the worship leader is someone that you maybe wouldn't naturally choose in your private life to like forward a friendship with?
I think knowing your role is a great place to start. I haven't been in too many instances where I don't have some level of relationship. So if I get called to do something outside of my normal context, it's usually because it's a buddy or somebody that I know. And there have been instances where what's coming to mind is I did an event with some friends of mine. They were doing a launch party, or it was something. It was a group, and this one transition in the show, like one of the guys was like, okay, when I say this, let's roll the track, because we were using tracks and everything. I was like, yeah. And so we did it in the rehearsal, and that transition was like, it seemed out of out of left field. And in that moment, like, I don't know him super well. This feels left-footed, but I'm here for these guys. Like, and there's like, not to over spiritualize things, there's a great freedom in knowing what you're responsible for or not responsible for.
Wow. And having that clear before you go into an event.
Yeah. Like, I am, if I am serving worship leader, artist Joe, and Joe is making what feels like to me a misstep. I won't even say a wrong call, just a misstep. My spiritual responsibility is to help them facilitate. I'm not responsible ultimately for whatever happens. So I can quickly just compartmentalize and go, in my brain, I'm like, that's weird. But nevertheless, I'm just going to like, okay, yep, that's what you want to write here.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'm being snarky. I'm not. Okay, just making sure. Yeah, we'll do that.
You have a confidence in knowing where your role starts and where your role ends.
Yeah.
That's so good. You had mentioned, and I haven't forgotten about ear mix. We'll come back to that in just a second. But you had mentioned a second ago a magical word that just blew my mind up because we haven't talked about it yet. Transitions. We all know that when we are MDing in a live setting, most of the time the wheels don't fall off during the songs because, let's be honest, in many contexts, we're guided by tracks, and tracks cover a multitude of
British lady talking to us these days.
But talk to me a little bit about the MD's responsibility in keeping the band together and some tips about what kind of focus should be put into transition.
We talk through on the regular. I'll talk about kind of how we do it at church, and then I'll talk about how we do it on the road. We talk on the regular about how we're getting from section to section of the service, song to song. And so we have a plan in mind, and then sometimes that changes. I mean, this past Sunday, Scott and I talked before church, and oftentimes, I say we talk through, we don't spend, like when we're planning or we're walking through the service with production or whatever, it's often not like, oh, I'm going to sing, we're going to do an extra soft chorus here. We know, okay, we'll get to the end of this. And oftentimes it's like, we'll get into, oh, praise. I'm using "Oh, praise the name" because it's what we did this past Sunday. We'll get into "Oh, praise the name" out of here. And we'll, we know there's a possible variance. Then usually, so that's like the Tuesday, Wednesday conversation. Then usually there's a Sunday morning conversation. Because once again, you don't know what your pastor's walking into the room with. I don't know what my worship leader is walking into the room with before Sunday. I'll say this and I'll come back to it. Oftentimes a worship leader, most of the time we're buttoned up by Thursday. That's just kind of our rhythm as far as how we do things. Everybody knows the definites, but then you've got Friday, Saturday. Most worship leaders are still thinking about Sunday. They're going to have, it could be their Bible reading on Saturday. It could be they wake up Sunday and something's on their heart. Like, you just don't know these things. So Scott and I usually, he'll be walking in, and like this Sunday, he walks in, he goes, hey, after we do this, I want it to breathe. And then I'm going to go into a couple choruses of "Oh, Praise the Name" before we start the song. Okay. So then I let the band know, hey, the first one, it's going to be super sparse, no real tempo. We'll just follow him. And then we'll do it again. And then we'll get into the song. So once he says that, things, real practicality things, if you're doing something like that, most likely you don't need to, at the end of those one or two kind of spontaneous, softer choruses, go and do the full intro of the song.
So you just skip to the verse 1. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So I go over to Ableton and I go, okay, there's the intro. There's 6 bars of intro. There's the verse cue. I move the playhead to right there, because that's where, for that moment and how that feels, that needs
Right.
to, we need to start there. We don't need to take time to do the intro.
When you're building transitions during the week and thinking through transitions, is there a common way that they happen in your culture? Are they usually musical transitions? Do you have a default? Do you fade out of a song and fade back into a song? Do you glue everything together with pad? What is typical?
Most of the time we end the song and then we start the next one.
Sure.
There was a day where it's like, oh, we got to make all this, especially if they're different keys, we got a transition chord and all, and we don't really do any of that anymore. Depending upon like key relation and stuff like that. Like if it's ballad to ballad, and let's say ballad 1 is in C, and then ballad 2 is in E, and we want that to be fairly tight. What I'll look for in those situations are commonality. So I'm like, okay, hey, keys, play the C, but give me an E on top, an E octave and nothing else, and hold that. And then the new track starts, and then it happens underneath it, and it doesn't feel as abrupt as if we just made a straight 2-step transition into a new key.
That's so good. I learned that trick from Jacob Suter back in the day.
Yeah,
so good.
So then there's the planning conversation. Then we usually we think how it's going to go Sunday morning. We actually got into rehearsal Sunday. We did that. We did 2 choruses, and we did the song, and after it, Scott is like, that felt weird. And what happened is, because you've got a soft chorus, if you do a repeat chorus, the tendency, and probably needed tendency, is to grow that second chorus. Well, when we did that, we settled into a tempo. But then when I rolled to the beginning of the verse, I won't say we were in different worlds. We were just not. We were in different states. Like where we ended up kind of landing on that tempo, and then where the verse is, it was far enough apart that it was going to feel weird. So it's like, hey, you know what? Let's just do one. Let's keep that super sparse. And then when we get into the verse, it'll feel more together, and it won't feel like we started going somewhere and then we changed and went somewhere else. So part of music directing is making musical decisions that help what the worship leader is feeling. Because I won't say all. I would say a large part of worship leaders, while they are musicians, don't know the ins and outs of how to communicate what they're feeling. That's not a negative. That's just, they're like, that felt weird. Okay, your job in that moment is to analyze what felt weird and how you can bring some direction to that.
That's so good. So we're interpreting what the worship leader is sensing and communicating back to the band a remedy or a solution.
Or it'll happen in a song. We'll get done with a song, and a worship leader, or Scott or Charles, they might say, hey, it felt like we went in the bridges. There's 3 bridges, and we jumped. Like there wasn't enough pacing. Okay. So immediately I go, okay, what can we do to build number 2? We got to, and I'll just dialogue about this with the band on talkback. Like, guys, bridge 2 did not build enough. So we need to figure out how we can make that a little more substantial. And usually drummer will be like, well, what if I did this change as opposed, and so then you're kind of crafting in that moment to help accomplish where bridge 2 really needs to be.
That's great. And I love how that's a dialogue. You used this phrase a couple of times throughout our conversation, just for the benefit of those who maybe are just learning how to MD. When you say letting moments breathe,
you have to get over a fear of not knowing what to do and being okay with sitting there for a second. Trying to think of a better way to explain it or give an example.
Well, it's not submitting all the time to the urgency of going to the next thing, which is just in our culture, how we're programmed. It's like, okay, next thing, next thing, next thing.
And how that fleshes out, like if I sense we're going to sit here, let's say we end on a 4 chord, and like I'm reading, Charles may look over and he'll just give me, that's his hold sign. I'll see what he's gonna do, and then I'm gonna decide what we need to do on stage. Sit there on the floor. Okay, just sit. If he goes into a prayer, I'd be like, okay, guys, let's go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, let's give me a sus. And then I'm just going to use that to sit there and just kind of, and if he starts to go somewhere, like if he's, given a moment of exhortation or if he's praying, and if it starts to feel, when you're in moments like that, like, this is why I say just doing things is better than trying to practice all the time. It's experience that's going to teach you. Because if you just sit on the 1 and 1 sus for forever, that's going to feel boring and monotonous. Yeah. Like,
you're actually trying to score the moment. So are you listening to the context of what the worship leader is saying, and do you go so far as to have the intentionality of, let's just make up a situation. Oh, he's starting to talk about a subject that's filled with tension. Maybe it's repentance or something like that. Do you go so far to be like, I'm going to put a minor chord underneath that?
I won't say I do that. No, I will decide, based upon what they're saying. I can usually gauge if they are sitting somewhere or if we're going somewhere.
Okay.
If we're sitting somewhere and we've been hanging on that, 1 sus for 4 or 8 bars, I may just go, okay, guys, go back to the chorus progression, keep it light. And then it's like, whatever the chorus progression, 6, 4, 1, 5, any of those. And we sit there till once again, I'm listening till I get an idea of where they're going. And let's say they begin to, in their prayer or what they're saying, allude to the next song.
Then they're giving you a verbal cue.
Yeah. Or it's not even like it's for me. It's like they are shepherding the room. They're helping connect the thought of what we just sang or what we just prayed about to where we're going.
And anyone that has watched a movie or it has an appreciation for cinema knows that those moments and the ability to read them correctly and to underscore them, they can make or break them. Like a moment can totally fall flat, but if you as the MD are coaching and directing the band in a way that's undergirding that moment with the right progression, it can totally, we're not talking about manipulation. It can just enhance that moment.
Yeah. And if I sense we're headed to the next song, like I may say, okay, guys, just lightly diamond on this one and just let it sit. And we could be the same key, we could be different keys, whatever the case may be. Then say, keys, or usually I'll call them by name. Hey, go ahead and start giving me the intro. So we'll work our way into that. And so just, once again, I'm just gauging it off of what they're saying.
That's so good. You wanted to talk probably 20 minutes ago about ear mix. So
it's not a long diatribe. But here's what I would say. Like, ear mixes or ear monitors are fantastic. Don't be an isolationist with what you dial up in that. And listen, have enough of everything in there so you know what's going on and you can listen to the people you're playing with. At the same time, especially for, I think this affects keys players the most, acoustic players second. If you get yourself, we're talking about underscoring, so this segues right in. If you're too hot in your own mix and you're underscoring a moment, then the tendency is to set your volume for what you're hearing at what feels appropriate in your mix. Well, that's varying upon how loud you have the speaker and or worship leader and your volume of your instrument. So you can actually, more times than not, be underplaying for the moment.
Right.
Because you pull your volume back to what feels right. And meanwhile, the front of house guy is like, I think somebody's playing something. I'm chasing it, but I'm all the way up on my fader. So always be conscious of your level. Like, I would tend to tell keyboard players, if you've got 0 to 10 on your
Right.
volume, make your variance like 50 to 10. So 50 is your quiet. And know that if you need to underscore, like, you're going to pull it back a little bit more than that, like to 60 or whatever the case may be, just so that you've got enough where the guy at the front of house can actually get it to the appropriate level, and he's not chasing it, and then you're not going to kill him when you all of a sudden turn your volume all the way up. That makes sense?
It does. There's a tension that MDs ride in having to discern and hear the cohesive sound that's being made, like where your part that you're playing should fit in the mix, versus like having yourself too low and then you're overplaying, or too hot and you're underplaying. And that's a good word. I don't do that well all the time. I'm very interested in hearing how everything sounds together when I'm in that role, and sometimes I have myself down too much that I'm not playing out enough.
Yeah, it's very like, ear mixes are a little tricky, man, because it affects so many things. As a guitar player, if I have my guitar too loud, then I underplay, which greatly affects the tone of what I'm creating. If I'm too soft, then I'm not hearing what I need to hear as a player to execute. Like acoustic players, if you're too loud in your ears, then you end up with a finger picking thing that's nice, but because you're too hot, it's super tinny, and you're not laying into it enough. Like, and it sounds crappy. And you may be thinking, this is nice over the intro, but what I actually need, and I've told dozens of acoustic players over the years, like, hey, I just give me quarters over that intro, because that's what's going to translate. Like, nobody's going to hear your nice little James Taylor right here. Like, just give me quarters.
That's so good. I got 2 more questions as we wrap up.
Yep.
Are there benefits? Worship leaders have worship leaders that they look to. We're kind of in a time and a season where I'm not sure that MDs are like well known, but is it good for MDs to have models, whether that's an actual MD or whether that's a church that, like, this is their sound and this is what we're going after?
I think anytime you can find stuff like that, it's good. So LJ Matthews, MD down at Elevation, and people have their thoughts about Elevation. LJ is a fantastic MD.
Yeah.
And so they've got, and we've talked about doing it for here, and this sounds self-aggrandizing, and I don't mean it that way, but we've talked about like ISOing my mic and creating, so that we can create some real life video audio of what it looks like. But they do that. LJ's done that. He's got several videos on YouTube you can look up, and you can kind of see how he coaches. And I actually use some of his videos in my MD class. Like, we'll play it for him, and I'm like, hey, what do you think that, what caught you off guard about what he did here, or what he said here? And he's fantastic. And then I'm always watching. So I will watch award shows, just so, especially if they got a band on stage. I'm trying to see who the MD is. Like, I just want to watch. I want to see what they're doing. And it just becomes like a big game, because I want to figure out who's making, who's calling the shots.
Yep, that's so good. My last question for you today is, what do we do when there's a disaster on the platform? And maybe even as I'm talking now, maybe something that you would feel comfortable sharing publicly comes to mind. But as an MD, like, how do we behave? How do we act in those moments when the train like completely comes off the tracks? And what pro tips would you give to young, inspiring MDs who find themselves in that position, as we all have at some point in our careers?
Oh, gosh, yes. Your job in that moment is to make decisions. So if we get off, I am looking for the easiest route back onto the road. Most of the time I'm abandoning tracks unless I feel pretty dang confident I can get us back on. but you are making decisions. If it's like a train wreck and everybody's all in different spots, you identify the next spot everyone can get back on. Like for some reason the vocalist started early and like chord wise we're behind, then I'm not gonna usually say this. I'm trying to think of things where I know I've done the opposite of what I'm getting ready to say. I'm trying to get us to match what the worship leader is doing. Rarely, although I've done it, am I saying hold here before the next bridge, worship leader. Unless it's like that's the easiest solution.
Yeah, because then you're managing a whole lot. There's another layer that you end up managing when you're telling the vocalist to like pause or to do something. It's probably easier to have the band catch up to where they are than it is to kind of manage both things when they're out of sync.
Yeah, like if we're a bar behind, and then we're at the end of the phrase, and after this next bar is the beginning of the bridge, and that's where the vocalist is at. Then I'm calling bridge right here, 2, 3, 4, and we're gonna get lined back up. So I'm gonna try to take what we're doing and put it there, to match the vocalist. There has been, I remember one. It was an Easter service, so this is like, ouch. There's a lot going on.
At stake.
And we were doing a version of Death Was Arrested. So Charles is transitioning in between songs. And I can't remember if he was a little bit, and that's in 6/8, so it's fast. I don't know if he was a couple beats ahead or a couple beats behind, but I knew that we were not where we should be. And the beginning of that song is super sparse. Like I've got no way, there's no perk that's telling me which side of the measure we're on. It's just open. And it's huge at the end. And we had time code rolling, we had video elements, and I can't bail. If there's any way I cannot bail, I've got to figure out. So Charles is singing, and I'm like, Charles, we're off. Listen to me, and I will tell you when to sing.
You just had to take the bull by the horns.
And so, like, at that point, I'm always talking about know your music. At that point, I quit playing. I mean, it's acoustic and pads at the beginning of the song. You don't need electric guitar.
So that's freeing up some mental RAM for you to direct.
I am zoning into where this click, because I know as soon as I hear verse, because often in cues, once you get in, like you get a 1, 2, 1 intro or verse 2, 3, 4 at the beginning of the song, but then later on, the kind of industry standard, if you will, is that you get the section cue, the bar before you start it. So if tempo's here, you hear verse and you start the verse right there. So I know as soon as I hear bridge, because it's not that we're a measure ahead or measure behind. We are like 2 or 4 beats off. So I think I told the band, because I got an acoustic player who's playing, I was like, at the end of this phrase, diamond, so that there's no competing rhythm going on. So there's like a 2-bar hold at the end of the verse that usually people are strumming through. I said diamond. So they diamond, and I'm waiting just to hear bridge, because as soon as I hear bridge, I've got to count 2, 3, 4, 5, go. And it's going to happen at a place where it does not feel
natural.
Right. And so we're sitting there, and I am so zoned in to just click and listening for the word verse. And I hear verse, like 2, 3, 4, 5, go. And he landed it. And I was like, in my mind, I was like the gifts of,
we made it.
We made it.
Oh man. And the weight of those moments, especially on an Easter Sunday, just to paint a picture for people listening in, you're on platform with, 9 or 10 musicians, a 250 piece choir behind you, potential orchestra. So, those are all things that you've become accustomed to, but there probably was a day where, you feel the weight of that. And it's just like you're directing those moments, and those moments are rising and falling on you. And you have, more or less 200, 300 people on a platform that are dependent on your direction.
Yeah. I don't think about all that. I would also say this, like, one of the things Charles used to say a lot of years ago is, nervousness is unchanneled energy. So you find yourself in a moment where you're nervous. The best the best thing you can do is step into it. Like, just don't be apprehensive.
That's great. Man, there's been so much wisdom on this call. Thank you for spending all this time with me, man. It's been great to just kind
one
of
funny story I was going to tell you,
jump in.
just so people know that this is all real life. One day, this was years ago, the first song was Here for You. The second song was that song, Every Praise, that was huge there for a while. And something happened. I was firing tracks, and I think I'd accidentally or hit the click solo button or whatever. Sometimes for like end of service, if we're repeating a song or if we're doing a song, and it's the end of our services are always very undefined. We don't know how much time. We don't have a full song planned. We'll do portions of song. If there's a tempo close to where I think we need to be, I'll go solo the click of a song and just play that click, and it gets us close enough. I think that's probably what had happened. Anyway, I go to start the service, which is Here for You, and I'm just hearing click. I hear no cues. I'm like, that's not right. So I try it again. Same thing. So then I walk back, and I see that's soloed. Well, in the process of unsoloing that, I look up, and my eye sees Every Praise. So I walk back, or I decided we were bailing. We had to bail. The computer locked up. Anyway, I count off, and Every Praise and Here for You are not the same tempo, but they're fairly close. I mean, it was. So I count off Every Praise in my brain, because that's what I saw up on the thing. Completely missed that Here for You is. So now think about the intros to those two songs. So one is like piano and pad.
Yeah.
The other one here, Every Praise has this wailing guitar part. So I count off. Everybody lays a low soft pad, and I crank into, and I am so dumb. Like, I am so sure. I am so dumbfounded why everyone else is not playing with me.
You just confidently keep going.
I played, and then about 2 bars before Charles starts singing, it clicks that I am now just the wrong song altogether. It was a major change. There's a video somewhere. The guys have found it and pulled it up.
That's so great. That's so great. It happens to the best of us.
It's real life, man. It happens.
If you were to, just as we wrap up here, if you were to summarize or highlight, one thing, which is so hard to do when it comes to like being an effective church MD, what would be the thing that you repeat, highlight, say, hey, if you lock down one thing?
I would say know the music and learn how to read the room.
That's so great.
Those two things. If you can get the music out of the way, I'm not saying you got to memorize every single line, but know what's happening musically, what needs to happen, and then read the room and read the dynamics.
Adam, you're the master. I don't know that there's. I don't know that there's anyone that I look up to more when it comes to this subject. So thank you for spending time and really giving us a master class over the last 90 minutes.
Well, thanks for asking, man. This has been great.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.